I'll tell you, Charles, if it's not one shutdown, it's another. How are you tonight?
If it's not one dumbass in the Democrat Party, it's another. I mean, the notion that, on the one hand, before this show, I was preparing and I looked through my emails and stuff, and I got multiple um, Substack things where one of the stories was Elon Musk warns on, the size of the U.S. government debt. Here you have Hakeem Jeffries, who really is certifiably insane, with this other moron, Schumer, thinking that they're going to, that on an 80-20 issue, where they're in the 20, they're going to shut the government down because they want to give 3.5 trillion, I think is the number, if you just look over 10 years. And of course, into perpetuity, it's a lot bigger number. $3.5 trillion to pay for illegal aliens' health care at a time where there's massive fraud in our healthcare system anyway. There's this issue of ghost subscribers to Obamacare, people whose premiums are subsidized, but so they don't pay anything. But these people for which the government is paying premiums never show up to a doctor's appointment, never get sick, never done it. So who's getting this money? The insurance companies are getting the money, not the people who need health care. So this is a ridiculous premise for a shutdown. And what it's proving is that for all the money that we spend on government, when you shut it down, you don't really notice the difference all that much. I mean, November 1st, we're going to notice the difference because that day going forward, there's a work requirement on food stamps. So you've got to work for 20 hours a week if you want to get food stamps. And a lot of the people, I fear that a lot of people on food stamps are not on food stamps because they deserve to be on food stamps. It's an angle. Yeah. You go on welfare, you go on food stamps, you do this, you do that, and you still get money as a hooker or a drug dealer or who knows how you get money, and you don't declare the income. I think there's
it's
lot
a business
of that
plan.
going on, and I think it involves many of these illegals. For example, the Senegalese
sorry to
soup
interrupt,
crew.
but didn't you overhear a conversation in a Starbucks or a McDonald's years ago where the guy was like explaining to the girl why she doesn't need to work there because she could just steal money in the way you're describing?
Exactly. I was in one of these McDonald's, I forget which one, in the days where you could get a cup of coffee for $1 and a sausage McMuffin for $1 and not look too closely at what you're eating or drinking. And, I'm in line shuffling up to the counter, and the guy ahead of me, it's like 250 pounds overweight. You want any sugar in that coffee? Yeah, give me 19 sugars. And then 19. Oh, no, make that 25.
It's free.
There's no room for coffee if you put 25 sugars into a cup. Anyway, and so that guy, gets his smacking his lips and drinking the coffee and having a big old time, and then he decides to lecture the person behind the cashier, and said, baby, you a fool. Why are you working? You standing there working, you getting chump change. Just go down to the office here, sign in Brooklyn and then go over to the Bronx and go down to Queens and go to Long Island, go to Pennsylvania. You get all these, you get these checks and money. You don't have to work, fool.
Wow.
Why are you working?
And then
if I can suss that out, myself,
in McDonald's.
In one McDonald's in Manhattan, how endemic why do we think there are all these people flocking to blue states? Because the word is out. You can steal money to your heart's content, and then when you rape and kill somebody, the idiot prosecutor may not prosecute you and may reach the conclusion that we're no longer in the prosecution business, we're in the rehabilitation business. So yeah, you raped one person, it's a victimless crime. It's not even a crime. Go back on the street. I mean, the insanity in government now, and to watch Senator Schumer believe that he has a hand, right? He's at the poker table, sitting down with the big boys. He's got no chips, no leverage, no nothing, but he does have the ability to say whatever he wants on the Senate floor. Nobody can attack him for that because of the rules of the Senate. Enough of this. This is reckless behavior. It's idiotic behavior. It stands in stark contrast to what Democrats have done in the past with shutdowns. They've always, said this is not proper what we're doing, and it's just an argument to curb their power. I'm a little bit worried about Senator Fetterman because when he ran for office, he was basically a vegetable. Now he begins to make sense, but he is saying that the Senate majority should just nuke the filibuster on the shutdown. Just say no. This is reckless and irresponsible. You are asking for things that the American public will never vote for, and you're damaging this country at a time where we've got we got a border to control. We've got some moron thug in Los Angeles who's got some nonprofit he started years ago. He's following ICE agents around and gave a speech in the last 24 hours or so, my time, where he basically said, ICE agents aren't the only people with guns, intimating that, his people were going to start shooting. And that's not a charity. You can't do that kind of stuff.
It's anarchy.
Yeah, and by the same token, the thug who, pretended he was president, B-Rock Dumpster Fire, when he was coming up the ranks, as it were, he organized for action, whatever that means. That's just like Viking raids. You go into a territory, you make trouble, and you say, unless you pay me tribute, I'm going to come back again. Well, that's what he's in the business of doing. And that is not charity. He's a mega millionaire, multimillionaire. This issue, I mean, imagine what would happen if Donald Trump had some friends over to Mar-a-Lago and his personal chef ended up dead, at 7 p.m. or whatever time it was the chef was found in a pond on Mar-a-Lago. What do you think would happen? Would there be anything other than, Donald Trump is a murderer? Right. This is it would be nonstop, 24/7, wall to wall in 200 countries news. But with Obama, we're going to have this mansion, and I'm all in for climate change. Climate change is a clear and present danger. Give my schlub buddy John Podesta $320 billion for fake green scams so I can, get a slice off of that.
Charles, look at this.
And I'm really concerned about the oceans rising, which is why I have one oceanfront property in Hawaii, a second oceanfront property in Massachusetts, a mansion out near the lake in Illinois, and another mansion in D.C. But me and my partner, we absolutely need 4 mansions. You should live in an apartment in a 15-minute city, and wash down a kale steak with shit water. Charles, that's the way you should live. I get to steal as much as I want, and enough of this.
Look at this for a second. Hang on. When you go to Google and put in Obama chef, as you're saying, if Trump had a chef die in the water feature on the golf course at Mar-a-Lago, it would be all over the place, demands to prosecute him. Here you can put in Google Obama chef and click on news. The first thing is Chef Cliff Rome and Bon Appetit management bring local flavor to the Obama Presidential Center. Former President Barack Obama visits Peach's restaurant. Peach's chef Cliff Rome to run Obama Presidential Center. Southside chef Cliff Rome. This guy's taking the job. He better not go paddleboarding.
Exactly. I mean, it's a dangerous thing, and it's a Marie Antoinette let them eat cake moment. I mean, you have Jeff Bezos is out there having divorced his first wife, hanging around with this new one on a gigantic yacht, flying spaceships around. And Amazon went out. Lionel, I know, has a special show on this. He's suspicious. Was it a kill switch that was used on Amazon Web Services? But it was out for almost a day and caused a lot of disruption.
Why a kill switch? What do you mean?
There's a news story that Bezos is contemplating replacing all of his human workers in his warehouse and distribution thing with robots. I mean, yep. I think there comes a time, where it's certainly the way our system of governance is set up, the most expensive workers, in terms of lack of efficiency and the high pay they get and the retirement pay, are government workers. So if you go down a track of saying it's okay to decimate, as Amazon has done, the retail industry, It's okay to destroy all those jobs. Many of those jobs were minimum wage, temporary trainer jobs. You get them in the summer or while you're in college. You do them until you can get a job that can pay you a wage to help you raise a family. But that sector, the retailing sector, has been destroyed by Amazon, and it's only going to get worse. So Amazon is yes, they've created wealth for the investors in Amazon stock, but if you were to score the impact of, and yes, people get to buy things more cheaply, but does it make sense to have a debt-fueled consumerist society where people are struggling to make ends meet so they can go and buy more stuff on Amazon that they don't need? I mean, is that really a sensible approach? And where's the mainstream media talking about this? You have the legacy journalist business is hilarious now. Watching Trump in his meetings, they had Hillary Clinton had the nerve to make an issue of Trump demolishing the East Wing of the White House to put up this ballroom. And I mean, she is getting ratioed and insulted on X, and it's a joy to watch. A Clinton talking about defiling the White House. Somebody wrote, "You probably PROLLY should sit this one out."
I did see a lot of pictures of Monica Lewinsky today.
Yeah, and a dirty cigar, which Clinton put in his mouth after he inserted it, and not in in a place where you generally don't want your mouth to go. Anyway, in the White House, no less, and multiple times. So, and on that subject, the White House has fired back. The East Wing was not part of the original White House, and there have been a lot of alterations to the White House over time, including one by Barack Obama, who turned a tennis court into a basketball court, which to me is sacrilege. But anyway, I mean, it's not buildings age; they need to be upgraded. I mean, give me a break. And I'm actually, apparently the people originally said that the smart thing to do was not to touch too much the East Wing and just to alter, just stick the ballroom as an attachment somehow onto the East Wing. And people have come back and concluded that it's easier and more effective actually to demolish the East Wing and start from scratch. And I'm sympathetic to that because I bought a brand new house in 1987. And decided to radically adjust it and spent 3 times what I paid for the house. And was told at the end of it, you should have knocked the house down and you could have probably done it for, 50% of what you spent. Well, thanks for telling me now.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to construction, Trump definitely knows more about that than Hillary Clinton. It is a good photo op, though, smashing the White House like this.
Or anybody, or the nerve, for example, on the subject of contrast. Here you have this, I'll say what I think she is. I'm not going to use the word I like to use, but that fat bitch, Letitia James, has the nerve, while Trump is trying to reclaim the presidency, to bring in idiots. And I happen to know the guy who was brought in as the financial expert to argue that Trump basically derived an improper benefit by securing a loan to build a property and then paying that loan off with interest and principal on time, that somehow was illegal.
In James' world, you got to just take out the mortgage and never pay it back.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just a woman as deeply flawed, a woman who would go and say, how I married my father on a mortgage application. I mean, that's not you don't miss that. You don't get that slightly wrong. Are you married to your father? I mean, this is the Democrat wing of or the wing of the party, right? It's ill woman. What does Trump call her last name?
Ill man.
Got it wrong. He didn't call it Omar, but it's ill woman, man. Something else. I married my brother to get into the country. My father was a thug in Somalia. Somalia was a shithole and still is a shithole. But listen to me. Change the rules of the house. Let me wear whatever I wear on my head in the house in violation of tradition in the house and rules of the house. And let me get away with whatever I want to get away with because I'm a person of color who identifies for the moment as a female. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. There's a Facebook I'm getting a lot of funny Facebook reels. And there was one that was titled Sergeant Pepper. And there's this anti-National Guard freak, with the piercings and weird hair and all this kind of, right in the face of a National Guard. What's your name, officer? What's your name, officer? Like shouting and yelling in his face. And the punchline is he takes out pepper sprays this woman in the face. It says, Sergeant Pepper.
It's pretty funny.
But we need moments like, no, you don't get to become a Supreme Court justice when you don't know the difference between a man and a woman, and then start appearing in Broadway plays, and then start saying that, blacks should be treated as a disabled class of citizens. You just don't get to do that.
Wait a second, Charles. Let me hold you on Tish James for a second, because there's a lot happening with that. I don't know if you saw this, but it's seemingly in response to reports from big social influencer accounts like Nick Shirley and Savannah Hernandez. There was a pretty substantial ICE raid on Canal Street. I don't know. I mean,
saw that.
You and I have been covering this for probably 9 years, and arresting a few people on Canal Street won't solve it. But federal agents detained 9 people, and they said 5 of them had crossed the border illegally. And now, in response, Tish James launched a portal for the public to submit information about ICE doing stuff, review federal immigration enforcement. Instead of cracking down on the illegal immigrants who are selling illegal counterfeit goods, she wants to stop the federal law enforcement. So that's where she's at with that.
Yeah, she's all pro mayhem, and really, I'm aware of a school for boys that is a place you say it's not really like a military school, but it's a school for boys aged 13, 14 to 18, 19, a boarding school, and it has very strict rules. So if you get caught, for example, doing minor things that you shouldn't do, like staying up later than bedtime or the lights out or whatever, the first thing the school does is they take off the door to your room. So you have no privacy.
That's weird.
And for your first minor infraction, you get treated pretty harshly. That tends to create law-abiding young men. And this idea that what you need to do with people who are really interested in, there's horrible stories I read recently, and I don't know the ethnicity of the people who did this, but 10-year-olds raping and scalping a 5-year-old girl, meaning cutting off
I don't
portions
think you
of
can
her hair and
rehabilitate
head
a person like that
at age 10. That's a very serious problem.
Yeah.
You have people. There was somebody who was arrested recently. I think he was 15, and he had 177 prior arrests. This approach, Meanwhile, at Harvard, I got this letter or email explaining what Harvard is up to now, because they had a small operating loss compared to their gigantic revenues. They're eliminating the PhD program in sociology, which I think is a good start, actually. But I mean, sociology is it's a ridiculous discipline, so this whole idea that what you need to do is perpetuate criminal behavior by change the crime statistics to stop reporting crimes, and now we'll all hire legions of idiots who can pretend they're working or while they steal from allied nonprofits, and just have this cycle of violence and graffiti and mayhem in our blue-led cities. And I think it's a network that movie network. I've had enough of it. It's just, this is bullshit. There are many. The guy, for example, the idiot who was running the school district in Des Moines, Iowa, turns out he was an illegal alien. Nonetheless, living in Iowa, collecting a big salary, 6-figure salary, dumbing down the school system in Des Moines while he was voting illegally in Maryland. This is just. I mean, we need Tom Homan. We need to clone Tom Homan and get him all these punk ass cities that are, Portland is a disgrace. I say that as a descendant, because I have a lot of pioneer blood, a descendant of one of the founders of Portland, Oregon. I mean, it is. I don't want to go there. It's grotesque, disgusting, and only a fool would invest in Portland, Oregon right now. Got an idiot mayor, a dumber governor, court system there filled with blue-haired lunatic judges. So yes, eventually law and order will prevail in Portland, but 10 years from now, maybe, if we're lucky.
Charles, I know you're a little bit squeamish, so I'll go light on the details, but I saw a pretty disturbing, you might even say disgusting video earlier today. Just to describe it in a general sense, it was 30 minutes of Nina Jankowicz speaking. And it was quite interesting because, as you're saying with the judges and everything, she was maligning her detractors like Matt Taibbi and other people who had been through various civil cases where they lost, and she was citing where they had to pay or they were found guilty of defamation or whatever it was, or liable for defamation. And she cited those court cases as if they were the written in stone gospel findings on these people's integrity or lack thereof. And then when the incompetent, questionable interviewer came around to speaking to Nina about her Fox News lawsuit, a defamation lawsuit that she lost, and then the appeal that she lost, that was explained away by the judges being, backward looking, and, obviously it was unfair when the courts were turned against her, but when they decided that, I forget her name. Is it Rion? There's a very attractive girl who used to be on
Chanel Rion.
Yeah. She got jammed up in some kind of defamation thing with Dominion voting, and Nina relied on that as like, the court found in this way. So the courts are so manipulated, it's really disheartening. We've spoken about it a lot, of course.
Right. Well, I mean, it starts in the law schools, and it starts before that in the high school, and the educational system is turning out mashed potato thinking. And I'm most familiar with tennis. You take as one example, Roger Federer didn't ask for an extra point or game or set per match when he took on Rafa Nadal. The two of them, at the top of their respective games, delighted in pushing the frontiers of excellence in tennis. That's the way academia should be. There are a lot of smart people. Many smart people are reticent. In other words, they're reluctant to talk because they know they're smart and they know what they don't know. And, they know that to reach an informed decision, you have to do a lot of careful thinking. And instead of those type of people being singled out, thoughtful, extremely competent, intelligent people being singled out and rewarded in academia with, prizes and whatever the scholarships and, teaching jobs and book contracts and stuff, you get the fools like the Gilbert and Sullivan, not even expert, who decided in her spare time that she could police the planet's thinking because she's that smart.
It's amazing.
It's ridiculous.
Amazing to watch her speak how lacking in self-awareness she is, and just how crazy malignant narcissist she is. But just one more thing on this ICE raid. It's like the second day of protests. People are literally out in the street saying, no, we want these aggressive, illegal vendors selling counterfeit goods. And, they're like, oh, these people are just trying to make a living. It's like, wait a minute. Hang on.
It's like,
any of these people, if they invented something or made a brand that became successful, they want people to be able to steal it and sell counterfeits of it on the street and not pay taxes. Here's this moron. Dan Goldman. They call on the NYPD to arrest ICE agents. So again, they don't care that people are, these are thugs who are intimidating people on the sidewalks. There's stolen Apple ear pods, and we see them selling these stolen goods. This is organized crime. The bigger issue that nobody is talking about on this, Charles, is that I don't know if you've been with me when I've seen this, but I see those African salesmen interacting with Chinese guys who seem to run those stores.
Together on that.
And and the stores are warehouses for the counterfeit goods that are probably coming directly from China. The African guys are the on-the-street salesmen. So in my view, this seems to be a big organized crime ring that is down there, probably selling millions of dollars worth of goods each year, funding who knows what. And it's okay, good start that they've arrested 9 of these lunatics, but they really need to dig into what is going on. You know, when I got assaulted by Felix Sater at the courthouse, I went to the police station to file a police report, and it's the Chinatown police station that has jurisdiction over the courthouse there because it's like right around the corner from Chinatown. And there was a lot of weird crap going on inside that precinct. I forget what the number of the precinct house was, but the NYPD officers were all Chinese. There were shifty-looking Chinese guys coming in there using the bathroom. And I just, when you're in a place and you get a vibe like, they're looking at me like I shouldn't be in here. And I was like, what the hell is going on in this police station?
Well, remember, there were credible allegations under the Biden era. Of course, people never wanted to go in legacy media down the track of, why were the Chinese paying off the Biden family? Well, there were credible allegations that the Chinese Communist Party and maybe the military wing had set up police stations inside our country to go after Chinese people, in particular, inside America, who were
let's continue this
were a threat
conversation,
to the Chinese
Charles.
regime.
Sorry to interrupt you, but let's continue this conversation in the First Amendment forum because we're out of time here, and we can talk some more about this because it's an important issue. But people are going to be able to join us on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. And of course, people can follow me on X at JG_CSTT. Subscribe there. You get the sponsor exclusive content. Thanks to everybody who has been subscribing and supporting the show. We'll be right back